What I would like to talk about now, and I've talked about this a few other times, but I'm going to do it one more time because now it's taken on a different urgency, and that is citizen journalism. That's right. Now, the thing is this. There's a difference between people from maybe the left and the right. And that is that to the left, there's more of a sense of the personal is political. And so when the left loses an election, they don't see it as, oops, we lost. Now it's time to, go back to just doing our regular thing. They're still thinking, they're still planning, and they're looking ahead to when they're going to regain what they feel they've lost. Because to a large degree, and I think this is true to a certain degree for some conservatives, politics even takes on almost a transcendental or religious aspect. And so they're continuing to do efforts. But what I'm really going to encourage people to do, because I know most of the people that listen to the show are, well, mostly a combination of conservatives, traditionalists, libertarians, and so forth. I know I have a wide variety of listeners. I've checked my subscriptions and on YouTube, and yeah, there's people of all political persuasions, but at least it's people that question the establishment, even to the left, who question the establishment. And I'll say this much. This last election, as I said in the first half of the show, was the establishment through its media, its extension. I mean, John Pilger, I mentioned him in the other show, the journalist. He was doing an interview where he said, if you go to Google and just type in John Pilger, there was no one to vote for. And it was on RT's site. He said that there are no journalists anymore. I mean, not the journalists that we think of, I think is what he meant. We don't have those kind of people that are out there trying to dig up truth. Remember the old, what was the name of that show? The Night Stalker. Some of you may be old enough to remember that, with what was his name? Kolchak or something. He was this feisty reporter who was digging around and trying to find information. In the same manner as X-Files. You had the FBI agents that were digging deeper and trying to find hidden stuff and conspiracies and that sort of thing. But we don't have journalists that really do that so much anymore. All right? And the media is pretty much concentrated. It's in Washington, D.C., New York, and to a certain degree, Los Angeles. Of course, that's more entertainment-oriented, but still, that's the triangle. And the rest of us are kind of living in flyover space, okay? If you're in the entertainment industry, maybe a good place to go set up a scene for a movie or so forth. But the people in today's media are more comfortable with the elite than they are the working class. More comfortable interviewing someone about the election in a vegan sushi bar in the Hamptons, or more comfortable going to an art display, avant-garde art display on the Lower East Side, than they are hanging out with people at, let's say, a 4th of July picnic or a, bowling alley in Fresno. Or a rodeo, for that matter, in Idaho, or something like that. And that means that they have a different perspective. They're going to see things differently. And that's not really going to change. Okay? The same people that brought you the bias and the almost really to, I think, large degree hostility towards both the Bernie Sanders people, who were kind of like fighting for a cause, kind of against the establishment, and later Trump, who was fighting against the establishment. And so those people are still, for the most part, there. Those same reporters, those same commentators. There's the mainstream corporate media apparatus is still firmly in place. And 30% of the people, according to a poll I saw, still have confidence in that media. 30%. Okay? 1 out of 3 people. Think about how things could change if you could switch half of them. If you could persuade, and I think it's actually a little bit higher, because I think sometimes we know people, we all know people who, they hate the media, but they still like to watch it. They still watch the news. And on some issues, they may sit there and go, yeah, right, I don't believe that. But on others that might be critical in decision-making processes as they relate to politics, they may be like, oh, yeah, that's interesting, and then they buy into it. Okay? So 30% of the people they trust the media. And then I think there's a big chunk of the 70% that are kind of like, I know I can't trust them completely, but I watch them anyway. News media, that is. Now think of the impact if we had a growth in alternative media and started reaching those people. Think about if we wound up getting a much greater percentage of people going, where you inoculate them, where if they hear something on the nightly news, and whatever, I mean nightly news, not by any particular network, just nightly news program, they're going to, if they know the information's false, then you've inoculated them, and they won't accept it, and pretty soon they'll start turning it off, and they will seek other sources of information. Now, how can you have an impact there? Okay? And you've got to. I mean, come on. Malcolm X stated, if you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. Okay? If you look at the state of the working class, and I'm not just, I mean the whole working class. I'm not saying the white working class or the black working class or the Hispanic working class or whatever. I'm saying the whole thing. Okay? This economic upsurge that the media was talking about, it's like watching a reality show with a bunch of rich wives or something like that, thinking, wow, things are so good, look at all the nice food people are eating, and you're starving. Okay? It's that kind of thing. The media is giving you a falsehood. And there's only one way to stop it, and that's alternative media. And I don't mean alternative media necessarily like I can name off your Alex Jones type people and so forth, or Stefan Molyneux. They reach a lot of people. But what if we have 10,000 additional people? That's smaller than a Trump rally. If 10,000 additional people started their own kind of journalism, and that could be just commentary. It could be putting a video camera. Okay? I mean, you could actually probably use an iPhone, but the thing is, video cameras are what? A couple $100, and you can film yourself. And I've seen some real good viral videos out there. I mean, viral, with over 1 million views, of just someone sitting in their car and for 10 minutes explaining an issue and why they feel the way they do about it. Okay? And you know what's important about those? It's because if you see someone that looks like you, acts like you, believes like you, and they're saying they believe this way, it has a greater impact. Okay? It does have a greater impact. If they just see a regular Joe or regular Jane or regular Maria or whatever giving their opinions, and they do it in a nice, good way, and get people to thinking. During the 2008 election, I went through YouTube and I typed in why we should vote for Mitt Romney. and hardly any videos that I could find. I'm talking about, grassroots videos. I typed in why we should vote for Barack Obama. Tons of them. Now, maybe some of them only, some of them may have had like 12,000 views. Others may have had 50. But you know what? The one that had the 50, it still reached 50 people. The one that had 12,000, it reached 12,000 people. And of course, there was some that were way higher than that. Sincere journal, and that's journalism too. Okay, journalism is not going out there with a pen and pencil necessarily and finding out information. It can be giving your opinions and giving your reasoning and explaining a cause. 10,000 people, think of it. 10,000 YouTube channels in which people start doing that. The impact would be phenomenal. Okay? Because if you think about it, when I started out doing this thing, you know how it started out? I was being interviewed about my Freedom from Conscience book series. Okay? Yeah, I've got, you just look up Freedom from Conscience. I've got Melanie's Journey, Descent into Darkness, Melanie's Awakening. Oh, what's the other ones? The Price of Power, Deliverance from Evil. All of them with Freedom from Conscience. But the thing is, I was interviewed by several dozen, mostly alternative radio shows on the internet and also some that were on other platforms. And I had one gentleman, and he said, "Wow, I really like the way you present yourself. You should have your own show." And I started out, okay, I could try that. And so I started with him. He was part of a big platform of alternative radio on the internet. And then when things came about, because he was just a regular Joe, he had to scale back. He put me in touch here, and I've been going ever since. But the thing is that I always convert my shows onto YouTube. And there I can actually measure how many people look at something. And of course you get subscribers and you start growing. And, I look at my analytics and I'm getting people who are listening to, these presentations from all over the earth. Mostly centered in the English-speaking countries of the United States, Britain, Australia, Ireland, and Canada. New Zealand, and so forth, but still a lot in other areas too. Saudi Arabia, India, Argentina, Brazil, Russia. The thing is, this is a fantastic platform. You don't need to be on a radio program either. You can just do your own thing, and you'll start seeing where people are listening to you from. Now, you may only get 50 people that listen to each of your videos. 50. But come on, that's 50. And then you can circulate them. If you're in a Facebook debate or something, go ahead and stick make your comments and then, put a link to your video. Or your blog or whatever. You see, the thing is, this is how you get information out. Okay? It's, now a lot of it's going to be like gravity. Your people like, the ones I mentioned, like an Alex Jones or Stefan Molyneux. Most of the traffic is going to come towards them because, if they have 2 million subscribers, then they do a show and they're guaranteed they're going to get, thousands and thousands of views on a video. And so that will probably come up in searches more often. But that doesn't mean you're going to get all. They're going to get all of them. If you look at anything where there's kind of a gravitational pull, there's always others going other directions. And many of them will start hitting you. And if you start getting subscribers, you will grow yourself. Now, you see, that's the thing. I'm asking people to go out there and compete with me. That's right. It's a challenge. It's kind of like that ice bucket challenge. I challenge you right now, you, the one sitting there in your chair. You try it. Believe in yourself. And pretty soon you'll start seeing results. But it could just be you hear something and you're like, wow, I really, really, really like what I heard on this one program or so forth. Just get on and explain it yourself. And it's going to reach people. And once you start seeing that, you will start getting involved in it too. You've got this internet sitting here that you can talk to anyone around the earth. You've got the ability to put information out. You have more than you did 20 years ago, when most of the time it was like, I'm really angry at this. I'm going to write a letter to the editor. It's still good to do that. But now the platforms are here, and don't go all out and go to all these different things, okay? If you don't understand how Twitter works, or you don't understand how Instagram and all this kind of stuff, stick to the regular stuff. Stick to like YouTube and Facebook and maybe start branching into Twitter, but mostly there's where you're going to get more information out. And so if you're looking at getting your candidates elected, you've got to educate people. You've got to get them thinking the way you do. Because I'll guarantee you, and I don't care if you're far left or far right, okay? I don't care if you're a Bernie supporter or a Trump supporter. The schools aren't going to teach your route, okay? They're not going to, in America at least, they're not going to be really, unless you get really good teachers, and there's a lot of them I know out there. But for the most part, you're going to get kind of the standard headlines from those kind of magazines that you see on the shelves at the supermarket. The ones that purportedly are, world type of news reporting, when they're not. Okay, or they're very biased, or they're very simplistic. Education's going to be that way, and in education, you're seeing many people turn out, they don't even have the ability to analyze. They don't know how to ask that question. Well, wait a minute, what's the bias here? Now, everything's biased. I'm biased, okay? Because I can omit information. I can use different words. I can talk about certain subjects and not others. So yeah, I'm biased. Every person is biased in some way. Ask them who's the best father on earth, and most people will say, well, and they'll list their dad. Okay, that's bias. Nothing wrong with it, but recognize it. And a lot of young people nowadays, they can't recognize it, and they can't say, oh, well, here is this other person's point of view. If you cannot understand another person's point of view, then you're not going to be capable of really turning them around. The old saying, you got to walk in their shoes. Yeah, you've got to. You're not going to change someone's opinion. You're not going to get them to develop any way, shape, or form unless you can understand where they're coming from. And once you understand that, then you can work on seeing if you can bring them around to your point of view. Or if not, at least to the point where there is some similarities. Like with these homeschool parents, where you get one person who's like you get a homeschool meeting where you've got a lesbian hippie couple with their kids that they're homeschooling, sitting next to a fundamentalist Christian who's homeschooling her kids. And yet on that issue there, homeschooling, connection, and they can talk to one another. And if something comes up about homeschooling, they can put their differences aside, their philosophical differences aside, and they can work on that issue. Okay? And I guarantee you that both of them will come to an understanding of, both sets of, couple, the husband and wife, and then the wife and wife, they're going to come to an understanding of each other. Better to get them to, if you're trying to convince someone to be, at least consider your political stance. then this is the way to do it. Okay? Otherwise, it may look confrontational when you go to rallies, and people get in fights with each other and arguments and so forth. No. The place to do it is here on the internet. This is the new public square. And I would very strongly encourage people to start becoming a journalist themselves. Let's just say, I'm just throwing this out there. Think of it. If all of a sudden you had 10,000 people, some of those are going to turn into tomorrow's Alex Joneses and Stefan Molyneuxs. Okay? Some of them will evolve and wind up becoming, very well known. Some of them won't. Some of it's just going to be like, I think I'll put a video out now because I'm angry about this. Okay? Or I saw something, or a relative of mine said something, and now I've got to let off steam. Let off steam in the public arena. Because there's someone out there that's going to agree with you to at least reinforce them. And if you're reinforcing them, that's almost as important as convincing someone. Because the people that you reinforce, you're going to keep within your particular framework. And then they may go out and convert others. But information is what drives politics. And the best way to do it is at the grassroots level, and this is the way to do it. No more, for the most part, we don't knock on doors anymore and give a flyer to someone and take off. That was an era that is long gone. Now it's the internet. Now it's alternative media. Take the plunge. If a raging torrent, a river, if you break it down, it originally came from just a whole bunch of raindrops coming together. And I think now is the time to get wet. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you're back next week for another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions. Take care now.